Hey guys, today I'm at Kentucky Camp, which is an old mining camp here in the foothills of the Santa Rita Mountains. I wanted to talk to you today about the top 10 ways to learn primitive pottery. So there's various ways to learn. There's good ways and bad ways. I've made a list of what I think are the top 10 ways to learn, and I'm going to go through that with you today. In the meantime, I'm going to be taking a hike from here at Kentucky Camp over to my grandfather's cabin that he built during Prohibition days to make moonshine. So at the end of this video, I'll show you that cabin, and over the course of the hike, I'll talk to you about my top 10 ways to learn primitive pottery. Ready? Let's get going. Number 10 on my list is trial and error. Not a very effective way to learn, but the way a lot of us did learn. Largely how I learned. Not to say that I didn't learn from books and from other people, but trial and error was probably my biggest teacher. And it's been a lot of people's teachers over the years, but it's not the most efficient way to learn. So that comes in number 10. You could just try and fail, try and fail, try and fail. It's a great teacher. It just takes a lot of time. So hopefully the other 9 will be a little more efficient, a little faster ways to learn. Number 9 is books. Books are a great way to learn, at least for me. I really enjoy reading books about the subject of pottery and how it was made. And even when they're not specifically about how to make it, there's a lot of books, for example, about Indian pottery in the Southwest that doesn't really go into a lot of detail about, the technologies to create it. But when I was a kid, I delved into a lot of those and just tried to pick out little nuggets that I could use in there, and they are in there. Today, there's a lot more books about this type of pottery, books about hand building, books about coil building, books about replicating prehistoric pottery. Clint Swink's book, Messages from the High Desert, is a really great resource to have if you're interested in this kind of pottery. So books are a great way to do it. I haven't written my own book teaching how to make pottery this way, but I'm working on it. It's on my list, and so that'll be coming out, I don't know, maybe next year. We'll see. Number 8 is the Southwest KILN Conference. The Southwest KILN Conference is an event that's held in different places in the American Southwest almost every year. And people who are replicators of ancient pottery come together from all over to share information, to fire pottery together. If you're a person that's just starting to learn the art of primitive pottery, it's a really great place to talk to some experts and get a lot of information from a lot of different people. It's being planned this year to be in the Moab area, but the details haven't been released yet. You can check out the website swkiln.com for more information and to keep track of when that is. Number 7 is traditional pottery training, like you would get in a classroom or at a pottery studio when you purchase a lesson. Maybe you're taking a hand building class. Maybe you're engaged in a coiling class down at your local pottery studio, or you're taking a pottery class at the local community college. There's a lot of options for the way pottery is traditionally taught. I'm just referring to all that as traditional pottery training. Those are good. Those are really great ways to learn. They're certainly better than the previous methods we've talked about in this list, but they have their shortcomings. First of all, they very rarely go into real primitive pottery. They don't generally talk about how to find and process clay. They don't encourage you to use natural materials as opposed to store-bought materials. They're probably not going to talk about outdoor pottery firing, so they have their limitations, but they certainly are good way to learn pottery, good way to get your hands in the clay and start making pottery. All right, number 6. Number 6 is picking an expert's brain. if you can just, and I don't mean like taking a class from an expert or you know, knowing an expert or being an apprentice. I just mean if you could just get a little bit of time with somebody that knows what they're doing, a half hour, an hour, to just sit down and ask them the questions that you have. That's really, to me, invaluable. That's really what helped me when I was 18 years old and I had a chance to actually talk to the Thornburgs and ask them questions about how clay was prepared, where to dig clay, how to form pots, just a myriad questions I had that I wasn't able to find in books or other places I was trying to learn at that time. So picking an expert's brain, just 15, 20 minutes with an expert can really help a lot, really move you along in your efforts to learn pottery. All right, number 5 brings us to what we're doing right here and now, YouTube. YouTube is a great resource for learning anything, whether you're trying to change the countertops in your kitchen, wallpaper your bathroom, or learn primitive pottery. My channel, you know, goes without saying. I'm sure you're already aware of my channel, but there's a lot of other channels that deal with things, either primitive pottery, such as Tony Soares, or related to primitive pottery, like people that are making hand-built pottery, people that are making coil pottery, people that are pit firing, people that are digging clay. There's a lot of resources on YouTube. It's not as good as some of the next things I'm going to talk about, but it's better than the previous things, and we're just about in the middle here. For number 4, I have to tell you about my online masterclasses while trying not to touch this giant poison ivy bush. So number 4 is online masterclasses. I have these set at number 4 above YouTube and picking an expert's brain, because you get to pick an expert's brain, but you get a lot more than like a half hour or an hour. It's better than YouTube because it's much more in depth, and it has things like quizzes to make sure you get the points. I have 4 online masterclasses available right now: finding and processing wild clay, making coil pottery, natural paint slips and pigments, and firing outdoors. All together, that's a real comprehensive education in primitive pottery. Is it going to teach you everything? No, there's always more to learn. I'm still learning myself, and I've been doing this for over 30 years. Number 3 is in-person workshops. Now, I struggled with this one. In some ways, in-person workshops are superior to online masterclasses, and in some ways, the masterclasses are superior to the in-person workshops. Let me explain. With a masterclass, I can go back and rewatch the difficult parts over and over and over again until I get it right. In an in-person workshop, you have a limited number of hours. You're watching the instructor, you're speaking to the instructor, you're trying to imitate what the instructor's showing you, but you might not get it the first day. You might not get it the second day. It might not be until a week or 2 later that you realize, what am I doing wrong here? And by then, you can't go back and rewatch that demonstration, whereas with the online masterclass you can. But I put it ahead of online classes because it also includes elements of that picking an expert's brain, which, although you could email the instructor in a masterclass, you're much more closer, you're having conversations with the instructor in an in-person workshop. And I think this picking an expert's brain, included with live demonstrations of pottery building, cannot be duplicated anywhere else. So number 3 is in-person workshops. Number 2 is my membership group, the Ancient Potters Club. And the reason I've chosen to list the Ancient Potters Club as number 2 is because it includes elements of a lot of the previous items. It's like an in-person workshop because we meet over Zoom every week. It's like online masterclasses because if you join the Ancient Potters Club, you get access to all 4 of my masterclasses. It's like picking an expert's brain because every week you have an opportunity to ask me questions and figure out what you've done wrong. So this is my grandfather's cabin. He built it using stones and mud mortar back during Prohibition as a way to camouflage his still. You see, he stuck the still in the dugout underneath the cabin. And then if anybody came along, they saw smoke coming out of the chimney of the cabin, they just assumed there was a fire in the fireplace. And there may or may not have been. But the still was kept underneath the cabin in the dugout, running all the time, churning out moonshine. He also did some gold prospecting up here and that sort of thing, and they lived here for a period of time during the Depression. The cabin still belongs to the family, and we come up here and work on it once in a while or camp out. It's a special place for me because I practically grew up here. I spent a lot of weekends up here on summer vacations with my grandpa, running around and exploring these hills. Now we're down to the #1 way to learn primitive pottery. Have you guessed what it is yet? It's an apprenticeship with a potter. Now, I've never had an apprenticeship, and I've never given out an apprenticeship, but I know people that have, and that's really the best because you're with the potter frequently or daily. You work together, you get to know the way the potter works, the way clay is processed, the way pottery is formed, the way it's fired, and you get to go through that process over and over again and learn it inside and out. We covered a lot of items here today on the top 10 ways to learn primitive pottery. Number 10 was trial and error. Number 9 was books. Number 8, the Southwest Kiln Conference. Number 7, traditional pottery training. Number 6, picking an expert's brain. Number 5, YouTube. Number 4, online masterclasses. Number 3, in-person workshops. Number 2, Ancient Potters Club. And number 1, an apprenticeship with a potter. There's a lot of items here. There's a lot of different things that you can explore if you're interested in learning more in any of these elements. I'm going to put a bunch of links down in the doodly-doo for all these things I can think of. I might not be able to find sources for apprenticeships for you, but I can definitely hook you up with the Southwest Kiln Conference and some experts whose brains you could pick. I can get you hooked up with classes and workshops. I'm just going to look around and find a bunch of links and just fill it down there. So look down in the description and you're going to find links to all these elements. If you have questions about any of this, don't forget to leave them in the comments. I'll be glad to answer those for you. I appreciate you coming on my hike with me today to my grandpa's cabin. Go ahead and leave me a like if you like this video. If you want to see another video about learning primitive pottery, check out this one over here, which is going to go into a different aspect of that. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you next time.